All right, we will call the Monday, November 28th, Mayor City Council meeting to order at 6:30 PM. If we could start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Perfect. Do we have any additions to the agenda tonight?
No additions for tonight.
Hearing none, I'll look for motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. So now we'll open up for public comments. If there's anyone who would like to discuss anything that is not on the agenda, please come forward. Seeing none, we will close public comments and move to the consent agenda. Is there anything on the consent agenda that needs to be pulled for further discussion? Hearing none, I'll look for motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. With that, Nick, we can jump right into item number 10 of the business items for the presentation of Highway 7 road safety present with MnDOT here presenting. Janelle, could you?
My fault. I handed them out.
Thank you, Janelle.
This side good?
That sounds fine.
All right.
You want to do an intro or just hop right in?
This is Derek with MnDOT, and he's here to present the Highway 7 road safety audit that was conducted here recently. With that,
Thank you. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Well, good evening. As Nick said, my name is Derek Luer. I'm with the Minnesota Department of Transportation. We recently completed a road safety audit out here on Highway 7, and I was just asked to come and give a presentation just real quick on what we discussed. I'll try to keep this to 10 to 15 minutes, but feel free to ask questions throughout the whole thing, and if you have any questions at the end, feel free to ask. Do you got control of the, okay, next slide. All right, so this this whole road safety audit got kicked off about midsummer last year. There was a serious crash. There was a fatality out on Highway 7 on Eureka Boulevard. That's out towards Shorewood there. And the community was very concerned about Highway 7, so they asked what could be done. Our commissioner at the time said we will perform a road safety audit, what's called a road safety audit out on Highway 7. And that's what kicked off the project. And so this whole thing, we've taken a lot of input from the corridor stakeholders, and we use them to help develop the scope as well. Next slide. So what is a road safety audit? A road safety audit is really, it's kind of a process that we use to evaluate a planned or existing roadway. We try to go in and review the crash history, prior plans, recommendations, and the existing conditions out on that roadway. During the road safety audit, what we really try to do is go out and try to identify potential safety hazards that may affect road users and suggest what can we do to help mitigate those safety issues and help mitigate those risks to make the road safer at the end of the day. A road safety audit really is a pretty flexible tool. It can be used before a project is done. It can be done during construction, and it can be done after. And in this condition, an existing roadway that's been out there for a while, go back out there, review what have we missed, what can we change, what can we do to make this road better. Next slide. The road safety audit uses what we call the 4 E's of traffic safety, which is engineering, enforcement, education, and emergency and medical services. MnDOT, we kind of focus on the engineering portion because that's what we're better at. So this report is a little bit more engineering heavy, more infrastructure based, but we do talk about some other strategies within the report itself. Some background. I think I have this on a timer, so if it just keeps going, it just pushes me along. So
this is the PDF, so I'll keep pushing.
oh, all right, perfect. You keep pushing. That's even better. You push me along. So the whole corridor was pretty long, even though the corridor, the crash just was focused on the Shorewood area. We decided to look a little bit bigger because usually these corridors are kind of a comprehensive problem. So we started all the way in St. Louis Park, where Highway 7 terminates, all the way out to the border of Carver County, New Germany, Township, Hollywood Township there, and then Mayor. You guys are a little bit to the south there, but we looked at the whole corridor, tried to understand the entire corridor from the perspective of the traffic safety world. So traffic volumes as you go towards the west there, they can just keep building. Out in this portion here, we're talking about 10,000 vehicles per day. As we get into St. Louis Park there, we're talking 40, 50,000 vehicles a day that are using Highway 7. So Speed limits vary a little bit, but typically the slowest part is St. Bonifacius. We're talking about 45 miles per hour. But most of the corridors posted at that 55, 60 miles per hour. I'll say posted because, as you guys probably realize, a lot of people are going a lot faster than 55 or 60 miles per hour on a Highway 7. We also looked at previous plans and studies. We tried to be somewhat consistent with those, try to understand what were they looking at, what were they trying to improve, where are they trying to go with these plans. So we kind of review those, trying to make sure we incorporate those into this road safety audit so we can make sure we're all kind of speaking from the same playbook. So next slide. We did some interactive public engagement. We set out a map online and we asked people to respond, tell us your concerns, tell us your issues, tell us where you see some opportunities. We only had the map out there for about a month, but we got over 1,000 comments from the public. A lot of passion, a lot of interest. Really, you know, the general themes we saw were people were concerned about intersections. The people wanted to see either more roundabouts or more traffic signals. People were concerned about pedestrian safety along the corridor. And then the other kind of big thing that kind of popped up was kind of this traffic light visibility, that sometimes those signals were hard to see and that the corridor is very dark, especially at night here. And I just noticed once again, driving out towards here at night, it is a dark corridor. It just gets very dark very quickly from the twinkle of the Twin Cities. But that was kind of the general themes. Next slide. So some of the crash trends that we saw out there. We broke the corridor up into about 3 regions just based on kind of the context of the roadway. Next slide. A lot of crashes through the whole corridor. There wasn't kind of one spot that jumped out overall. But as you moved out to this portion here, St. Boniface, they're a little tighter. But then as we move out to the western part of the corridor, they get a little bit more spread out. So next slide. You can see here, these are the crashes per year from 2016 to 2020, kind of averaging that 275 up to about 400 per year. This is along the entire corridor. Until we get to 2020, we see a drop down to about 228 there. The reason for that was COVID. People just weren't out driving. People were staying home. We saw the crashes go down. Unfortunately, we didn't see fatal and serious injury crashes go down. Those actually went up in that time frame statewide. Next slide. Crashes across the whole corridor, if you look at those and we break them down, really the most prevalent crash type we saw was what's called a front to rear, a rear end crash. For a corridor like 7, which has a lot of traffic signals on it, this isn't really too surprising. Just with the speed that people drive and then the traffic signal turning red, we see a lot of front to rear crashes. The next biggest one was kind of the single vehicle, people departing the roadways, hitting things on the side of the road, and then it kind of just keeps dropping from there. Next slide. Looking at those fatal and serious injury crashes, those are the ones that we're most concerned about as a department. These are the ones we try to focus on. These are the ones we try to eliminate as a whole. But along the whole corridor, you can see they're actually kind of fairly well strung out along the corridor. There wasn't one spot where they all piled up. There wasn't one spot that was significantly bad, but they're kind of stretched along the whole corridor. So certainly paid attention to, we need to look at the corridor as a whole. Looking at just these fatal and serious injury crashes and seeing how they break out. The kind that we saw that popped up to the top the most was this running a red light. Was that somebody was going through a green light, somebody below that red light to hit them at an angle. That was probably the largest contributing crash type out there that we saw. That'll be important here in a moment. But then we kind of saw some other ones out there, improper driving maneuvers, operating the vehicle in a careless manner, distracted driving, kind of a lot of those things that you probably expect from a corridor that's got a wide variety of users. Next one. So some recommended improvements that we have. The first one that we kind of made, we made some corridor-wide recommendations just because the corridor was so broad. But remember that running the red light? One of the recommendations we made for the whole corridor was this idea of what's called a red light running enforcement light. And the reason we made that recommendation is in order to enforce a red light, you need 2 officers. You need one upstream and you need one downstream of the signal. So that way, if someone runs the red light, no officer wants to chase somebody through a red light. It's just too dangerous. They don't want to do it. So what they do is they have 2 officers. And when someone sees that red light upstream, they can signal to the officer downstream and say, hey, the blue Volvo just blew the red light, pull them over, get them. The problem is most law enforcement agencies don't have 2 law enforcement officers to commit to running red light enforcement. So what this allows us to do is you put this blue light on the back of the signal. And then what happens is that's tied into the red light circuitry. So when the light turns red, that blue light kicks on, and you only need one officer downstream to run that red light. Once they see that blue light come on, somebody runs the red light, they can go pull them over. And as our law enforcement can probably tell, they're pretty busy. They don't have time to get 2 officers. Red light running enforcement is probably a hard thing to do already, but this will hopefully ease the burden. The blue light doesn't do anything without enforcement. We do need enforcement there to help us out. So that's one corridor-wide recommendation we made. Another one was that yellow border around the traffic signals helps make the signals pop a little bit. And then another big one that we made was this idea of a Highway 7 corridor coalition. And those corridor coalitions, in my experience, have been really good at helping to highlight issues, bring resources, and get legislative attention and more resources to the highway. So, so that's something MnDOT can't start. We can't lead that, but another city or a county or stakeholders can start that. And MnDOT can help provide resources. They can help provide data. They can help provide, kind of walking you through the process. How do you get a project started? Where do you identify funding sources? Kind of walks everybody through that whole process. So those have been pretty successful in the past. Just some more specific improvements to this area. Some of the ones we talked about was just some roadway signing. A lot of these roadways come up very quickly if you're driving down the highway, especially if you're looking for something. So just some more advanced street signing. And then we kind of recommended a series of small studies just because we could not get into depth with the road safety audit itself. But some of these studies could lead to bigger projects in the future. So those are some things we discussed. Next slide. Some things we discussed was out kind of from 25 to St. Bonifacius. There was the idea of centerline rumble strips. We talked about some intersection lighting at a few key intersections that are very dark now. Next slide. What else do we have in here? We had some things like removing trees out of what we call the clear zone. And a vehicle goes off the road, we want to give them a soft spot to land. We don't want them hitting trees because hitting a tree at 60 miles per hour typically isn't a good day. So the next part, go to the next slide. One thing we talked about too was within St. Bonifacius itself was St. Bonifacius drives pretty fast, especially for an urbanized area. So one thing we talked about was this idea of making St. Bonifacius look more urban. And you make it, and in order to slow speeds down, you need to make it look urban. What do you do to make it look urban? Things like curb and gutter, sidewalks, trees, street furniture, these things that make a city street feel like a city street. So people will drive it like a city street. So that was what we talked about for St. Bonifacius. Next slide. Just some more recommendations. The report itself is 60-something pages long. 30 pages of it are tables like this on the bottom that are just recommendations. So we make a lot of recommendations, a lot of discussions of what we could do next. One thing we talked about is get rid of bypass lanes, put in left turn lanes instead. That usually helps with intersection safety. Next slide. So what are we doing? Recommendations to consider to ensure safety projects continue to be implemented in the study area. We're just saying at this point, give me 1 second, let me get caught up on my notes. Agencies, we encourage you guys to continue to collaborate with us at MnDOT here. Establish an approach to complete the listed items as to be evaluated. A big thing is as projects come forward, as paving projects or other projects come forward, use this road safety audit as kind of a guidebook to what can we do out here next. Highway 12 has a road safety audit that was very similar. They go to the road safety audit every time there's a project and say, all right, what can we do and what can we incorporate in this project next? And then, work with your traffic law enforcement if they're out there using 7. What are they doing? Can they be out there more? How can they help enforce Highway 7? It's easy for me to say that. I don't run law enforcement, but law enforcement certainly has their hands full, so I appreciate any feedback they can give. Next slide. Next steps. Right now, you guys are actually the last city I'm meeting with. I think I've met with a dozen cities already. A couple counties are both Carver and Hennepin County. But we're trying to share this information with local officials. And then trying to get these findings out to the public, just so they know what we're recommending and what projects we want to see coming on down the pike. Next slide. That's all I got. Thank you. Any questions? I know that was quick, but.
One, do we have a copy of the study?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions for Derek? So just talk a little bit about the streetlights. And maybe I missed some of this not reading through the slides.
Sure.
Where there's a lot of accidents there and some of the deaths from people running them, extra law enforcement will pull someone over if they run it, but how's that going to mitigate someone from running them? I mean, how do we, did I miss that somewhere about,
Yeah,
how do we mitigate that?
I probably jumped over that a little bit, but one of the reasons we talk about that is one of the reasons we think there's a lot of red light running enforcement is just because there is no fear of enforcement now. People run red lights. They really don't think they're going to get caught. They don't think they're going to get busted. So, cheating that red light at the last second isn't a big deal because, hey, I ain't going to get caught. The idea of putting the red light out there or putting the blue light out there in enforcement is now people start seeing enforcement. They start to see people get pulled over. They start to see tickets being issued. People are going to be a little bit more hesitant to run that red light in the future is kind of the idea behind all that. So
And can you explain the blue light a little bit more? I don't
Oh.
quite understand how that works.
Sure. So what it does is, so if you imagine a traffic signal, if you're facing this way, you can see the red, yellow, green.
Yeah.
What this does is it puts the blue light on the back of it.
Okay.
So that officer can just sit downstream and he can look in his rear view mirror. He can just kind of look in his side view mirror and he can see that blue light. So when that blue light turns on, he knows the red light up here is turned on. Sorry, yeah, I should have been a little bit,
Thank you.
yeah.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
There are some along Highway 7.
Yep, we have installed a few out there. So, yep. And I think we've gotten commitments from either Hennepin County or the local law enforcement to go out there and at least do it at least periodically. Because, yeah, like I said, the blue light itself doesn't do anything. It's just a little light. But with some enforcement, we think it's a pretty effective tool.
And are you seeing that in your data?
The few times we haven't got a ton of them out there yet. And the big challenge is we don't know how much enforcement is using it. But when we know that enforcement's been committed and we've kind of looked at the crash data, we have seen some reductions in those crashes, those running angle type crashes. So.
Yeah, I saw there was another accident this weekend,
Heard
right?
that as well. Right at Eureka.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah, and that certainly seems to be the worst area there. It seems this end of 7 with the roundabouts that have been installed 10 or 15, 12 years ago, 15 years, resolved a lot of it out here, it seems to me.
Yeah, and
From standpoint.
yeah, it was really interesting with the corridor just looking at too. Yeah, well, you're right. As you get to the west here, things seem to settle down a little bit. Traffic's a little bit more controlled, I guess. To the east of there, you've got the 4-lane divided. It seems to operate pretty well. It's kind of a major arterial. It's that middle portion where you kind of got this rolling topography, 2-lane divided, high speeds, a lot of access points along 7, kind of all these things that kind of don't mush together real well. And that's what ultimately generated the need. But yeah, that's a tricky area. And we do have some recommendations in the report about what could be done there. But it's not simple. It's not easy. It's not cheap. So it's going to take some time. So.
And some of that urbanization that you were talking about, you were talking mainly that in the St. Bonnie area there, kind of, the sidewalks and park benches, those to slow down in that. Is that
Yep.
the area you're talking about for that?
Yeah, the St. Bonnie area was kind of where we focus on that area. Some of the other areas, they might benefit from that treatment a little bit, but certainly St. Bonnie would probably be the area that's probably most ripe for having that kind of change in the roadway characteristics.
And that just kind of gives visually, people just seeing the visual, the mentally, they just kind of slow down.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. People typically respond more to what the visual environment is rather than what the speed limit is.
Slow down, do you mean stick with the speed limit or quit speeding?
I mean, we'll say slow down and actually slow down. So they might be operating closer to 35, maybe 36 miles per hour rather than what they're doing today, which is probably 50, 55.
The only reason I'm asking that, because it seems they just changed that section within the last year and a half, 2 years, maybe.
Okay.
Up
To a 50.
250 from 45.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it seems to go against.
Yeah. And usually what we try to do is we try to match the speed limit to what the existing conditions are out there. So we try to make sure that we're consistently telling people what the speed limit is based on how they're kind of driving. I know it's kind of back and forth, but if we want to change that, we have to change how the road looks in order to get people to change how they drive the roadway.
Be interesting to see if St. Bonifacius had concerns with, if they like that idea. Yeah, because they don't like it at 50 is 52, but okay. Any other questions? Well, thank you.
Yes.
I appreciate you
Thank
coming in
you.
and sharing this with us. That's great. I think it's certainly going to help. So keep up the great work. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for the time tonight. I appreciate it. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Nick, with that, let's move to business item number 11. Consider approval of hourly wage adjustment for fire department personnel.
So the Personnel Committee met, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, and we took up this issue. And currently, the fire department staff have an hourly wage that's associated with call-outs. And that is currently set at $10 per hour. And we took a look at, I believe it was 16 other fire departments in the region and what they were paying on a per hourly basis. And this hadn't been adjusted since 2018. So we took a look at those and we found the median between all of those was $12 an hour. We presented this data to the Personnel Committee, and the recommendation up from the Personnel Committee is to adjust from $10 to $12 an hour, starting for 2023.
Any questions on
So
that?
when we did the budget, I think that was kind of talked about and touched on, but is the new wage in your budget numbers?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yep.
You said 2018 was the last increase.
Yes.
All right, if there's no other questions. I'll look for a motion to approve the hourly wage adjustment to $12 per hour for mayor firefighters and first responders.
Motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I'm going to abstain from the vote for personal benefit.
Thank you. So like Nick said, at Personnel Committee, we did discuss this quite a bit. We thought this was an appropriate. I think anyone who's worked with me long enough, I do get concerned with these high percent increases at a 20% increase, but we haven't adjusted anything since 2018. We think it's appropriate. We did our studies around comparing to other communities. We fully understand mayor is different than Chanhassen as far as that, but a lot of our discussion was the risk and what they do doesn't change. As firefighters and first responders from city to city, they're still doing the same stuff, basically, no matter if it's Minneapolis or for the most part. So we thought it was an appropriate increase.
And then also if a
Purdue.
firefighter was leaving their place of employment to make a call, they're not getting paid from their place of employment to attend the call. So that was another factor
Right, yeah, thank
we
you.
talked about.
So is there something we can do to ensure this doesn't go 4 years again?
We talked a little bit about that. Should we start just doing annual increases on some of this stuff, on compost workers, firefighter, like we do for employees? So we're gonna look at something
Okay.
that we can do.
Okay.
It's still that balance on what, last year we focused a little bit on the meeting part of things versus their hourly wage. And so we took hourly wage this time. Next week or next year we might focus on something different, different aspects of it. So we're trying to balance things out but one way would maybe we just bake in an increase every year and go that. It's easier to budget.
Yep.
But we'll look into that as personnel committee.
And is this, I don't know. So is this just when they're on a call, or is this when they're training, and the training is that meeting pay?
That was, that's separate.
That's okay. This is
that we did
only
this
when
year.
the pager goes off and they.
Yep.
Okay.
And I believe it's for anyone who responds, no matter if they go on the
Correct.
run or not, because they've left, they've responded, they're there, wait, if needed, or mutual aid or helping when it is needed.
Yep.
So, all right, any other discussion? We have a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
I
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 3-0 with one abstain. Business item 12, consider approval of updated contract for cleaning services of City Hall and Community Center.
So the city of Mare started contracting with Squeaky Clean LLC back in 2019. And the rate at that time was $561.17 per month for one general cleaning per week of City Hall and the Community Center, $200 per cleaning for the fire hall, and $50 per event cleaning. Event cleaning is when we have something in the community center, and then they have to come in and tidy up after the event happens. So that was first set in 2019 and hasn't been adjusted since. Squeaky Clean came back and requested an adjustment to their contract. And it had gone from a per month type of basis to a per cleaning. So I try to equalize those numbers as you see in the memo there to make sure we've got apples to apples. So it's going to $150 per general cleaning, still at once a week. And just a caveat on that, my understanding is back when COVID started, there was an added cleaning done each week as kind of a, well, not a desanitization, but a sanitization. And that wasn't incorporated in the contract at the time, but that was being done at the per event cleaning. So there was an extra 50 per week to go from one cleaning to two cleanings. As it currently stands, these numbers don't, the comparison doesn't reflect that, but we'd be proposing going back to the one cleaning a month, not with the added sanitization procedures in that. That was more something that in early COVID, when we didn't know how all of it was transmitting at that point, everybody was sanitizing everything a whole lot more. That's since backed off, since the transfer on surfaces really isn't quite as bad as they thought. So looking to also then adjust back to the one general cleaning per week as part of this as well. So you can see down there, 150 per general cleaning, one per week. It stays 200 per cleaning for the fire hall, and then goes from 50 to 75 per cleaning. So what does that look like? Under the current contract, that comes out to about $134.68 per cleaning. and that would be adjusted up to 150. And then event cleaning goes from 50 to 75. So given that's not a much of a large increase, and it hasn't been updated since 2019, staff recommendation is to approve the new contract.
Thank you. Any clarification or questions for Nick?
Do we pass on the event cleaning? Is that part of our fees when we rent out the community hall?
That's something we talked about, is looking at adjusting those fees for next year to include that increased cost.
Fee schedule we typically approve at the first meeting of next year. We're going to take a look at that too.
Okay.
And I think the short answer is yes, but we'll take a
I
look at
guess
it.
so.
Okay.
All right, with that, I'll look for a motion to approve the updated contract with the proposed increase in service costs.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. That will take us to council reports. Councilmember Wagner, anything to report on?
No.
Councilmember McNeely?
Nope.
Councilmember Hell?
Nope.
And I have nothing to report on. Also, as with the holidays,
Do you want to talk about the tree lighting
I have
Friday?
meetings.
Tree lighting?
Yeah, Friday.
We can mention that Friday at 4:30, Santa Claus will be here. There'll be a tree lighting. It'll be a little bit more abbreviated than we've seen in the past just because of the construction going on. So people should be aware of that. And then Santa Claus will move on to the fire station with pictures with Santa. Yep. Like I said, there won't be the typical bonfires or hot chocolate and the apple cider and those things. It'll be just lighting the tree and then Santa Claus. And then people can go down to the fire station.
Once the pavilion's all complete for next year, we're going to bring all that back.
Right. Yep. Perfect. So with that, we'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.
Okay, just use the rest.
Go ahead. Yep, go ahead. We'll take a quick recess here before we open. Go back.
Good Lord. Is it dry in here?
Yeah.
Contacts feel like they're stuck to my eyeballs. Everybody probably thinks I'm tired, but my eyes are so dry.
Yeah, they'll need sets. If we can just ask.
Getting it down. I'm trying, Mike.
Yeah, you better.
We were thin to begin with, so I don't know.
We cut out that rebar
Yeah,
of
it
the-
stands right now.
office.
Office, yeah, we're Xing everything out. I'm gonna take the heaters out next. Yeah, here we go. Yeah. Gravel it. Yeah. Cold storage. Oh.
Oh, me too.
We will call the workshop to order and we'll just jump right into the public works building.
So, Mayor has been working on the potential for a public works building addition to the existing site over on Shimcor. And we've been going through that process. That was one of the first meetings I actually went to when I started on my first day in the morning, was meeting with the architects down at Public Works to get an idea of what was going on. So we've got updated plan sets, and the goal here is to present these as we've got these to near final designs as we can get. Have you come up and present on what we've got, and then Kyle jumping here from time to time to give some more clarification on this. From my standpoint, when I first came in here, I've had a handful of building projects in my career. This is a pretty basic build for a building. There's not really any bells and whistles on here. It's comes down to, I believe this is what Public Works needs, not necessarily all the bells and whistles that might be want. So from my standpoint, this is a pretty basic building that fits the needs of the Public Works Department. With that, let me take it away.
Very good. Thank you for having me tonight. My name is Tim Oranger. I'm with Olson and Hobby Architects. We're based in Mankato. And I just have to stop and do a little thing here to say thank you all for your service. I'm the mayor of the city of Eagle Lake near Mankato, and next week is my last meeting. I've been mayor for about 20 years, so I always appreciate when we've got people that are willing to serve their community. So
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you to you all tonight, because I just decided to retire and somebody else needs to take over. So it's always good to have people interested in kind of the goings on and the workings. So what you've got on the screen is basically our 99% complete document set. And so the scope of the project, kind of what our goals were to get some additional truck storage space for Public Works. And so what we've put together is a 60 by 80 pre-engineered metal building addition to the existing Public Works garage. So you'll have concrete floors, and we'll get to some maybe the floor plans as we look through. Concrete floors, to hold the truck, weights. We'll have trench drains in there to, as they come in from plowing, scrape off the snow, they can push it all to the drain. So there's 3 larger trench drains in there, overhead doors, 2 larger ones, 1 smaller one. The thought being, we can use the pickups or smaller vehicles, but then have larger doors for the snow plows. There's a couple personnel doors just to access the yard, and one to the rear of the building. There's been kind of some miscellaneous storage towards the fence in the back of the building. This will allow for easy access to that. We did add some clear story windows, higher windows on the back side of the building to allow some natural light into the space. And then you'll be included with heating, a makeup air unit system. So as any carbon monoxide or other fumes gather in the space, that system will turn on and vent that out. There is a concrete apron outside of the overhead doors to protect as the machinery is going in and out. And then just some minor demolition to open up the existing back wall of the Public Works garage to allow for access into the rest of the existing space. Our intent as we started was to remodel the existing space as well. But we've kind of pared that back, as you can see from our cost estimate put together. We just wanted to make sure that the bulk of this work can be accomplished within your budget. And then we can take on some additional renovations at a later date. I think maybe some of this you might be able to accomplish in-house, and so we just thought this was probably a better way to spend the dollars. So we can run through the documents if you'd like. The one piece that we're waiting on is currently some kind of final civil engineering documents, but there's really very little civil engineering work, grading work, anything that'll go with this project. We do have one sanitary sewer connection out in the parking lot. And if you go to sheet A 1.0, there will be one sanitary sewer connection out in this area. And really, that's about the extent of the civil engineering work or dirt work. We will have to kind of dress up. This is the concrete apron outside of the doors. We do have a gravel lot that currently exists, so we'll have to do some dressing of the gravel elevations to meet with the apron. And I don't know, Kyle, if that's something that is even something that your staff can do at that point.
of that in-house.
All right, and then if we move on, so this is the basic floor plan, and you can see the addition is going to over double the current size of what we've got in the shop. The two bays up here will have the larger doors, so the thought being that those could be the larger vehicles, and then a smaller bay here. There will be a workbench in the back along the wall then, so they can do maintenance of various items in there. And basically, that's it inside the building. We do have your pressure washer moved from the existing building into the new, but just trying to streamline things and make things a little bit more efficient. So there's not a lot of bells and whistles. There's not a lot of extra components to this. If you want to sneak through some of the rest of them, basic elevations, just kind of showing we're going to match the existing building as best we can. So it looks like a uniform and aesthetically pleasing addition. We will have one, if you can go back, Nick, just one. We're going to add one alternate bid to the project, and that will be to add additional concrete masonry unit waiting. There's some existing on the existing building. And so in order to add that in and tie it back, we'll ask for that as an alternate price. Typical building sections, again, this will be a pre-engineered steel building, and so one of the challenges that we have is, and I don't know how many of you are familiar with bidding out construction projects and having dealt with some, there's some lead time concerns with pre-engineered steel buildings. And so what we'd want to do is get that ordered as quickly as we can to see what the potential delays might be from various manufacturers. So I do have a project manual that I've started. I didn't give you a copy of this. It's kind of in draft form, but we will allow for multiple different building manufacturers to bid the project. And then we'll just have to determine if there's concerns delivery-wise on their product. Basic sections, just showing some of the wall materials and assemblies there. Roof plan, very basic, not a lot of penetrations in the roof. It'll be a metal roof there. Structural drawings then to show the footing and foundation plans and some of their little details. Again, we'll cast that trench drain system right into the new concrete floor. So there will be some slight elevation changes just to allow the water to drain to the drain. Otherwise, you'd be stuck with a flat floor and squeegeeing everything. And there will be a new flammable waste trap in this new building. And a flammable waste trap is basically a 55-gallon barrel buried in the ground. It's vented out. We'll take all of the wastes from the trench drains. It could include grease, gasoline, oils, any flammable materials. It allows it to vent so we don't have an explosion inside the building. The existing flammable waste trap has some aging pipes, and so we didn't want to get into trying to upgrade and renew things. So there will be a second waste trap here, now going out to the sanitary line.
Also, our current waste trap doesn't provide enough slope to the new floor drains. So there's quite a bit of slope that's needed on them, so we weren't able to utilize it like we had hoped.
And it's a safety feature, protection required by the building code now as well.
The first one then be taken out of service?
It would
With the new
still
ones,
be
or would
in
it still-
service but we are putting the new one in with the capacity to be able to take on our current floor drain if our current one were to fail.
These are some plumbing plans, again, showing some of the underground piping. Then we'll get into some of the mechanical drawings. Again, this rectangular piece here on the back side of the building is the makeup air unit. So this will sit outside on a stand. Inside, there will be ductwork running up and down. It's got louvers on the top and bottom, so it'll be automatically activated, but you will have a manual activation too. So if somebody's in there doing something that's creating fumes and they want to change the air out, they can actually manually turn that on. Just some details and schedules. And then the electrical will just be basic power and lighting then. This is just the demolition on the existing side. LED lighting, trying to make use of, the most energy efficient items that we can. Just a couple destratification fans inside and some door operators. So again, very minimal, not a lot of extra pieces in there. So I did include a cost estimate. I don't know if you want to run through that a little bit, just to give everybody an idea of where we think this could come in when we bid it out. The difficulty, as I say, the last year and a half, 2 years, it's been very, very difficult to track and predict what some of the items are that, see increases and then availability. So what we try to do is build an estimate based upon kind of some previous bids that we've seen to give you kind of a low end and a high end kind of in that range, just because things fluctuate so much. And so we broke down kind of each individual item through this list. And then you can see down at the bottom of the total low cost, we're looking at about $760,000 to $910,000 as a range. And again, we always hope to be high on our estimates. This gets to be a very challenging part of the business is, we didn't bid it, so we try to give you an estimate, but we don't want to undersell you and say, well, we can build this for $400,000. And you all go into it and thinking that'll be 400,000, and then it comes in at 600,000, and now I look like the bad guy. And so we try to, I don't want to say fluff it up, but we want to be realistic on the numbers that we're presenting and not try to come in and say, well, we can fit this into all of your budgets. And but we do think these are reasonable numbers. You can see the cost per square foot of the project is about $160 to $190 a square foot. We keep seeing that cost rise as we go through projects. If you want to look back at the Pavilion project, you probably don't want to see the cost per square foot of that project just because it was a smaller building. But any questions on the estimate there?
I don't have questions on the estimate, but I have some other questions. When was the existing Public Works building built? In what year? Anybody?
I don't know if I have that. Do you have that, Kyle?
2004, I want to say. The current existing that
Mhm.
we're, I think 2000.
It was already
We
built.
bought it used. Yeah, we bought it used 2015.
I was gonna say, it
2015,
wasn't Public
26.
Works then.
Yep.
And how big is it?
50 by 50 or 52 by 52, something like that.
Okay. And so is 60 by 80 going to sustain us for a while into the future? Or are we going to have this conversation in another 5 to 7 years? I mean,
And it honestly all depends on how fast we grow. I mean, if we get a big subdivision come up and we add 10 miles of lane road, then it's like, this is going to get real tight real quick. So Right now, as we're growing now, though, I see it lasting, and Nick and I had this discussion in 10, 15 years for sure.
Yeah.
Based on current growth.
What's a fourth bay added cost now?
Adding another fourth bay. So right now, we kind of stretch it to our boundary limit.
Yes.
We have room to grow off to it'd be the east of the building, kind of to go right next to the addition to the east, or even along back towards the salt shed, which is right there. So we have room to grow more if we need to,
But not back.
but not so much back anymore.
Then how do you just make it deeper?
That's so we did. So that's why it is. So our current building's 50 by 50. We made it 60 by 80. We went 10 feet closer because I think our setback for the property line is 30 feet. So we got some room to the north. We could go a little closer if we wanted to match the property line, but it gets kind of messy. So right now we pushed it back. So we went a little deeper to give us more storage up in front of vehicles, to store lawnmowers, to store, seasonal equipment, that sort of thing. So, but right now, as I do see it, lasting us quite a while.
How far to the north can we go?
We're as far north as we can, thanks to the northwest corner, unless we narrowed the building up or angled it.
Well, that's what I was just thinking. Should we angle it now so that we can have a more streamlined process in the future?
It's up to you guys. I'm trying.
Well, I know we're trying to keep costs down, but I'm also looking for ease of addition later.
Mhm.
I mean, if you'd gain some more storage too.
Sure.
With that angle, you'd have more of a workroom in that southwest corner.
Well, that's kind of how we came up with the additional space. We kind of based the square footage off of what we're currently utilizing in the old fire station, what we're currently utilizing at the new public works, and also how to kind of spread our equipment and make it more safety and more everything more spacious and not so cramped. And then also having a room to do projects, to
Right.
together and assemble picnic tables and that sort of thing without having to unload the whole building, and to be able to do that or to park a piece of equipment. on the
Right.
side. So
And this does all of that. This gives you all of that
for now, yes.
until you add another vehicle or 5 more lawnmowers or
So I don't want to say the one bay is an extra bay, but it's kind of serves as an extra bay, but we'll be able to fill it up. And then also, as we grow, things would just kind of like how we grew now, maybe more attachments would have to sit outside. Some of the less things that can handle the elements better can sit outside.
Can't we pallet rack some of those attachments?
That's what our current plan is.
Okay.
They put pallet racking on the back wall on the kind of the north side, and then to put our plows up on pallet rackings and all that.
I mean, I don't want to change plans. There's a lot of work involved here, but just that little,
Yeah, I don't know. It'd be great to get as
I'm just thinking for the future. That's all. Because it's going to kind of be a little bit wonky if we leave it as is and we need to add on. It's going to,
so the architect has to figure that out.
well,
We'd probably be able to add another building on there too, where lawnmowers can go in, where
yeah.
maybe other things go into a whole separate building on the property, or move the salt shed somewhere
True.
else, or
The other,
I think there's room for that.
right, and kind of the other thing in the back of my mind, we're going to be looking at doing some digester work and everything out at the wastewater treatment facility. And then at that time too, we would like to add a storage space out by the wastewater treatment facility for pumps and that sort of thing. So kind of we'll have hopefully a little bit more space out there, and that might be able to kind of balance it a little bit more.
Things too,
Well, I was
like
just
you can
thinking
move
too,
things.
can't we put up just a regular pole shed too, non-heated?
Yeah, kind of. Cold storage.
The equipment doesn't, you don't need to put a plow in heated, in a heated building.
During the,
Obviously during the winter, it's great. Your hydraulics work a lot better and so on and so forth. I understand that. But, summer wise, it's out of the way then, and it's out of the elements and in a much less expensive structure.
no, it's not for- they got room. We got still room on site to put up cold storage or even
Because we're gated out there, right?
facility. We got room for cold
Okay.
storage.
We have that far corner there.
Yeah.
stuff going on. And again, with the lot being only so big and the big equipment that we have to turn around and drive in there, that size lot might not last us a whole lot longer either.
True,
You know,
true.
At some point, it might be a whole new, in
Yeah.
20 years.
And you don't
But-
want some ginormous building that nobody else can utilize
Yeah.
that
Right.
has no resale value. But
I think to that point, I think there's room to put other structures, by themselves and stuff, and the wastewater treatment plant. And
Right.
some of that.
When we bought this building, we did have conversations because we used to have where the pavilion is now, cold storage, so we did keep stuff there, but we knew that we would eventually do this addition, knowing that when we purchased it at the time, that it wasn't going to suffice at the time, but it's all in a step process.
And I
And we weren't doing snow removal in-house at the time
Right.
either.
that changed.
True, that changed big.
Changed. And I think even the conversations when we purchased this was it was an 8, 9, 10 year
we're there.
building, and we're there. I mean, I think the planning was pretty spot on.
I just want to make sure you're good. I don't.
Always go bigger. Oh,
Well, I
won't
just-
argue that,
I
but
just don't want,
gotta stay
like, oh
budget,
shoot,
too.
we forgot this, or oh shoot, we forgot that. I want to make sure that you have what you need to function and
This-
without,
yeah, this will give
spending-
us plenty of space for quite a few.
Yeah, I like hearing that there's an extra bay per se, right?
Yeah.
Like not that everything comes out of the old fire station and it goes in there and we're full,
Yeah,
right? Like
Right.
that's
right.
That's
We'll
my
keep everything.
concern.
If we can keep it inside, we're gonna keep it inside, whether it's, could sit outside or could not, just cleans everything up, makes it last longer. So,
but so we're still in need of addressing the ambulance issue
Yeah.
and the police issue.
Correct.
And this isn't going to solve either one of those, correct?
Nope, this is just public works.
Okay.
At this time, there's no intentions of that at all. No.
Okay.
so yeah, if you wanted that, that would be an additional space.
Right. One, I'm trying to think before we pulled the trigger here, to, if there's,
those were it.
So
Well, Nick, can I just ask one question? Maybe I'll just throw this out there too. What you've got on the screen right now is the darker shaded area is the impervious surface. So that's the gravel, the paving, and any of the building roof lines. We're currently covering about 52 to 53% of the lot. And I think the city does have a 70 or 75%.
So, want me to have
Coverage?
clarification on that? Gravel counts as impervious surface.
I know.
So I could take that out.
No, gravel counts towards the percentage.
Right, right. And I've got all the gravel in my dark area there.
Yep, so all that stays in, and John was looking at that and he says we're getting close to that 85. 85 is the max coverage limit for the commercial industrial space.
Okay. So I'm just, as far as, if you're at a pole shed or another building out there, there's not, we can't just say, we're gonna add
Right.
X amount unless we put it on something
I
that's
was-
already,
I was going to say,
Yeah.
it's probably going to be where some of the gravel is, I'm assuming.
yeah.
We'll plant grass.
You might have to reduce down the gravel space to wherever you're putting the
Right.
new impervious space and make that adjustment.
Right.
So I just throw that out there about, kind of what you're seeing on there is about 52% coverage from our calculations.
So I'm assuming from other customers that you've been working with, you do go out for bids quite often, open bids quite often. How are these bids, these last ones that I'm assuming you do them quite often?
Mhm.
Making an
How
assumption.
are they coming in
How are they coming in versus what you
versus
had,
estimates?
what you had estimated? Yeah.
Sometimes it's still hit or miss. Some things do sneak up and catch us. But what we've been trying to do is follow up on recent pre-engineered steel building bids. And then we've also reached out to a few contractors to get some current pricing, and that's kind of built into that estimate. So I feel pretty confident with these numbers that we're not going to get burned on anything. We don't have a lot of other kind of strange materials. Sometimes windows can be a problem, aluminum, and it's just, we've got basic products here, so I'm feeling pretty confident with this, that we're covered. It's the ones where we get into, kind of the strange timelines, maybe a phased project where we've got moving people around on different floors, and those get to be challenging as far as, hitting the right mark. But yeah, from current projects that we've opened, we're in the ballpark there.
How about maybe in the last 6 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months? How are things trending? Are supply chain getting back where it needs to be? Do we feel we're plateauing on our costs?
I think so. There's still just an outlier
Oh,
here or
yes or
there. They're
no?
coming down a little bit in some areas. Some of the mechanical equipment and electrical equipment is hard to come by. Panel boards seem to be a weird thing that you can't quite explain. But I think the general contractor community kind of has a grasp on where these things have bit them in the past. And so now they're either able to, and when we go through the bidding process, we'll have different manufacturers specified in our documents. And if a contractor maybe knows that one of these products is difficult to come by, but I can substitute a different product that's locally available, that's easier to come by, then we do have this request for substitutions that we'll kind of deal with during the bidding process. So they can hopefully raise any flags that they're seeing as we bid it out. But yeah, I don't want to be the crystal ball guy, but I think we've hit the plateau and are coming down. And then tomorrow it'll be something weird. It'll be, because we got hit once with a latex shortage and paint was in short supply. And that one just kind of snuck up on us. Right now, concrete is kind of in a peak demand, I guess. So it varies and it bounces around, and it's really difficult to give you the crystal ball answer.
Trying to think, is this one of these unique times where waiting a year might be worthwhile? If we thought things were coming, I think
Right.
everything
If
peaked.
prices are starting to trend downward, and
But obviously I don't have my finger on that. But
yeah, I guess I couldn't tell you at this point.
Well, just watching the news with the uprising in, China and the potential railroad
We're gonna get hit with
strike,
something new,
I
aren't we?
mean, There's all kinds of pending. So just to clarify, these are all overhead heaters, things like that, not in-floor heat.
Nope.
No in-floor heat, no radiant heat. It's just the basic. They are high efficiency heaters, which I guess we would like just because they're 10%.
But like if there was an addition at some point down the road, that drainage system, there'd be a separate catch basin. I mean, not something you'd have to tie back into the other building.
Or like,
Well, for that,
The flammable waste.
The flammable waste, yeah.
There could be a potential connection from the existing building to the new if the existing trap fails. And that would involve,
if we did an addition.
if you did an addition after this one.
So I guess I don't know if we might have room for growth.
it depends on how it was, situated. I guess if you had something that we could sneak in up here, you'd have to probably cut into the floor at that point.
Well, that's why I was asking if, when you're laying that section, do you cap that end for a potential tie-in someday, so you're not destroying everything again?
It doesn't hurt if you think we're going in that.
Well, because I can't
Correct.
imagine capping it off is all that difficult.
Yeah, it'd
Do-
just be, well, it'd be kind of like the slope, like I was telling you why our current one doesn't work. So we got to make sure,
Gotcha,
depending on
right?
which way we're going,
Right. Those are my only questions.
at that
Yeah, and
point.
if you did a cold storage building, then you wouldn't
Right, then it wouldn't
need it
require. Right.
anyway, so.
And it could be remodel everything. If there's a third edition, we could make the first two just for all the trucks,
Okay.
where the drainage is, and maybe make the back for more of a work area.
Just trying to think of everything and I'm sure I'm gonna lie awake tonight thinking of more questions for you.
They've done, between Kyle, Brian, Nick, spent a lot of time scaling this back, making it, as low budget. Originally, we were looking at the office needs to be remodeled, some of the mezzanine stuff, there's the bathroom, there's just some things that had to change inside too. And all that's been tabled now just because of the anticipated costs that we saw. So we took all that out. They've done a great job getting it to where it needs to be.
But Kyle and Brian can, and potentially a third person can handle, I'm assuming some
Yeah, we were
of the
gonna kind of,
necessary or wanted upgrades.
yeah, or, some contract some things out, but kind of handle it more.
Right,
in-house.
right.
That's kind of what we're thinking. Because we were thinking, a conference room / lunchroom, because that we currently don't have, but kind of making a more of a locker room type setting for the bathroom and mechanical. We got to do some HVAC upgrades, but that can just be done through our regular general fund. So, but yeah, once we found out it was about 6 to 8 months out, and then the price increase 40-50% since 2020, 2019 when COVID hit. So that's when we got original number back then, and it's gone up 50% since then.
So that's just it. Do we roll the dice now? And like Mike was saying, a year, it's half the price, or it's double what it is now, right?
Yeah.
Do we have anything in the budget for this?
Yes.
When we talk budget,
You'll fill us in.
we'll talk more about what that
thought we
funding
did, I just-
looks like,
Yeah, okay, thank you.
what that could look like. I'll give options and see where council wants to go on it. Yeah, Kyle, and we've talked about the future on that because that makeup unit on the back was originally on the north side, and we had talked about, well, maybe one day you'd kind of do an addition this way.
Mhm.
Well, that unit's going to be in the way there, so we shifted it to the back side. So at least we're
Pre-planning, yep,
pre-planning things like that.
absolutely.
Or,
Every little bit helps.
or additional storage off the east, maybe like a shorter building, kind of just for squad cars or something.
You got in there a little bit.
We tried. But yeah, there's definitely room to grow, and I think it's going to
Okay.
serve us quite a while. I mean, I don't see us foreseeing another dump truck or anything anytime soon, unless, like I said, if all of a sudden we get a big developer in here tomorrow, then Fieldstone doubles our size, and it's like, yeah, then we're going to be looking for some more equipment, storage, building space and all that. So, but if we stay kind of status quo like we have been over the last few years, I think we'll be all right.
As long as Kyle's
Did
confident.
you put the schedule up, Nick? What the proposed schedule was?
Oh, no, I have that in an email. Sorry. I don't have that schedule. So
That's fine.
I can kind of walk through it here too.
you got it
Yeah.
right offhand.
So right now, we're kind of in this presentation mode here, getting everybody kind of familiar with where we're at. I think Planning Commission meets on December,
6th. Yep.
okay, I had that down as the 12th, so maybe I'm incorrect.
Council meeting's 12.
Oh, yeah, all right. So once the Planning Commission reviews and meets, any comments that they bring up, we want to incorporate and kind of get in the final set. So then we will submit to the council for the December 12th meeting, the final documents, looking for your approval to send those out to bid. I do have an advertisement for bids too. I don't know if you want to bring that up. But our intent then, if you move forward with approving the project to go out for bids, we would post it on Quest CDN, kind of an online bidders exchange. That's where we've done previous projects. And that would be posted then December 13th for contractors to download the documents and begin the bidding process. Bids would be opened on January 5th, which is a Thursday here at City Hall. Then we will kind of vet the bids, kind of talk to the contractors, make sure that they've got everything included that we believe that they should have. And then we would bring a recommendation to the council on January 9th. So following that, if all is well, it's all within budget and you're ready to proceed, that authorization, then on the 9th, we can start in with preparing contracts. And that would be key at this point to get that general contractor on board so we could get the shop drawings prepared for the pre-engineered steel building. That's going to be the longest lead time item. So they will then, in essence, regurgitate our drawings back. We'll review them one last time for the materials that they're going to prepare. And then we can get that into ordering and manufacturing in that building. Did I miss anything?
Does the advertisement for bid include a completion date?
I have September 1st of 2023 currently. The only drawback, to that is that if we find that the metal building, is delayed, we might have to revisit that completion date to allow them to finish things up. But at that point, we'd be, concrete in. We wouldn't be under any pressure for winter approaching, and it's just a matter of when the building arrives to erect it. Finishing the rest of the building inside, we don't have partition walls, sheetrocking, painting, tiling, things like that. So once the building arrives and is erected, there's not much left to finish the project. So
if we get that far and we move forward, we're going to put the building in. How just from a project management standpoint, who oversees the project itself to make sure things were done right, or, when a payment request comes in and who goes through the plans and drawings? Yep, this is done. Yep.
We'll be with you throughout the entire project. So it'll more than likely be me. I kind of act as project manager. So we've got a couple of architects that will come, now and again, but I'll take care of the day-to-day business, administering the contract with the general contractor, reviewing those pay requests as they come in. So I will come to the site, review the work that's been done, and give you a recommendation then. So,
Good.
So yeah, I'll be here. You probably won't want to see me much anymore, and hurry up and get out of here.
You do if you bring those numbers down.
Yeah, right.
I just had one more question. I can't remember it now. Any other questions? Oh, has this been in front of Planning Commission yet?
Not yet. It will go.
They haven't looked at it at all,
Next week.
and do we feel one meeting is going to be enough for them? Do they typically get through this stuff pretty quick?
Yeah. So when they were looking at the Zion Lutheran, that was pretty well done in one meeting too. And they had variances and things like that they had going
Yeah,
on.
I understand.
This just requires a site plan review by the planning commission. And it's a pretty straightforward building.
Good.
John has been looking at it so far. No concerns have been coming up from his end on it.
Perfect. Okay. Well, we'll get it to planning then and see what they recommend and go from there. Perfect. Well, thank you for coming in.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for all your work on this. It's been tedious, I know, a lot of back and forth, but I think we've,
Want to get it right.
yeah.
Anything else you need from me, Nick?
No, I think we're good for now.
You'll go through all the good stuff now on,
Yep.
on budget and
Yeah.
Yep.
paying for it?
Do that. Figure out how we want to do this.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
All right. Credit card policy update.
So update on that is I did speak with Security Bank and Trust about their credit cards. They don't have a PIN system or anything like that on their type of card that they have. So we'd be looking at issuing 3 cards once again. But on their online system, when you register for that portal, we have the 3 cards, and any expenditure that's registered under each card shows up on the online portal, so you can track which card has been making what purchases. So if you really need to drill down about who's been spending what specifically, we have that detail that's going to come down with it. And then you can set it up so that it'll automatically have the payments come out, so we don't have to worry about late fees or anything like that. So through them, we're getting pretty much everything we want out of it with the detail we need to really scrutinize it if need be. So that's the only update I have on the credit card policy.
Sounds good.
Thank you. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm think we should continue to move forward as you proposed. But,
And who are the 3 cards issued to?
The 3 cards are currently held by, well, myself, but it's Maggie's card. So it'd be myself, Janelle, and Kyle.
You would all still have your own card.
Yep.
Okay.
Anybody who makes a purchase, I can go online, go in through the portal and see exactly who's been purchasing what vendor they got it from, price.
Yeah. Okay. Because I thought at one point you had talked about like a single card and having to come to you to get it.
With the oversight controls you have with the online portal, I'm fine with that because I still get the same information I would have been getting with just one card going out, or with PIN codes, I'd still be getting that information.
Yeah.
So I can
I like
keep the oversight on it.
Yeah.
good, thank you. All right, 2023 budget update.
I'll have this load up here real quick. Not too many major changes to the budget. The first one that was made was on the water use end. I backed out the 3% increase because that wasn't necessarily new. Let's make that a little easier to read. So backed out the 3%, otherwise stayed pretty well the same. So our total revenues went from about 105 down to 90, and that's still in the black. That's still revenues over expenditures. So won't be looking at that. No real changes to sewer or storm sewer. On the general fund end of things, the changes that was made there, let's see, general government, where was it? Brought that down from 150 to 100 after council discussion last go around. So that was at 150, brought it down to 100. And then on the revenue side, the amount for the general fund levy was reduced by the 50 as well, since we had a reduction in expenditure, making the reduction in the revenue side. So both those came down together to keep the budget flat. That was the major change on that end. Let's see, I think it's next week. I think it was next week that the people from the energy audit were going to come in and tell us savings on LEDs, rebates, things like that. And we can get some more of those costs together. That's really the bulk of the budget changes that we've got on that front. Oh, my debt's, I don't know why that opened. All right. So this spreadsheet, you guys saw last time where we've got figures over here, but then really the bulk of the stuff is over here. And while I'm at it, I'm going to get this spreadsheet up so we can play with numbers and dial things in. So this is where we want to get more deeper into the discussion about funding the public works building, given the cost. So right now, with things as they are set here, we're looking at, I'm sorry, let's go to the original. So with the original budget here, I got the other spreadsheet for us to work numbers on so I don't lose my original. We were looking at a levy about just shy of 1.5 million. That tax rate would be at the 47.44%, which is about 1% less than we had in 2022. The preliminary one we were looking at was 53.21. And so we got a couple figures here. This is that 31% that I'm sure you guys have been hearing about. This was from the 2022 to the old 2023. So that does the division of those cells and figures out the percentage on that. That's where that came from. So this is where we can look at how not just talk about Public Works building, but then we all get into the discussion about the levy, where it's going to be at and the tax rate associated with it. So when we're getting back to here, we were still looking at about a 19% increase in the levy, figuring these factors. So I got a couple things working here. I did receive word from the county today. It popped into my head that the EDA was supposed to be levying on that. So I talked to the county about it some more, and they told me that because paperwork wasn't filed quite right, that the EDA does not qualify to levy funds for next year. Now, a different way to do that would then be for the city to levy the funds and then transfer the money to the EDA. But I don't know if that was ever the city's intent to do that. I say that because if that was the intent, it would have been baked into the cake. But since it was more the EDA doing its own levy, the intent seemed to be that way. So scenario can be, since they don't have it, and I was never really told that they had a plan for the money. They just wanted income in order to start programs on an EDA basis. But to my knowledge, there haven't been any programs that were thought of. So that's a discussion point on maybe perhaps we take 2023 to make sure we properly go through that process so that the EDA can levy funds. And that then they can think of programs and things to do and have that all in place for 2024 in that. The other section we look at as far as that levy number we're looking at this point is in the capital levy. So the general fund is pretty well set. The debt is pretty well set. So we look at what we can do within the general fund, or I'm sorry, the capital levy. And before, when we're looking at that tax rate holding there, I told you we had taken, and you can see from 2022 to the new 2023, we shifted monies into streets as the placeholder there to look at buying down part of the cost of the coming in, or the mill and overlay work that we're looking at doing for next year. With the public works building coming in at the cost range that it's looking at, this then segues into the conversation about, well, how do you come up with the money to go ahead and pay for the building? We continue to go in that direction. So update as it is right now, the Public Works Building Fund currently has $75,000 in it, and there will be another $50,000 going into it in December when we receive our second half tax settlement. So to that, at the end of this year, there'll be $125,000 in there at the end of this year. Now, next year, you can see we have $100,000 going into there, and that was the same as last year and the preliminary for 2023. So you add in an additional $100,000, that gets us to $225,000. Now, then you do the sale of the old fire hall. As part of that, and that gets you to $610,000. And that's the monies we have. I was hoping we could use the ARPA funding to go ahead, the 140 we have, to shore up a bit more of that. I got guidance back from our auditors and their tax division saying that we did not specify in our ARPA plan up front that we were looking to use ARPA plans for revenue replacement. So since we did not do that, we can't use it for a public works building. So with that out of the picture, if you're talking $750,000 to $900,000 as the bill, the question becomes, well, where can we look to the rest of that as a potential? So we're going to be bonding for that mill and overlay in order to accomplish the 1.1 million. So what you can do, instead of trying to bond for multiple things, you can look at taking some of the 284 here, because originally it was 100 to keep the tax there. You can look at shifting monies from streets into public works. That just means you bond a little bit more on the streets end of things. It'd be nice to not have to bond at all for a public works building, pay for it outright and be done. So there's an extra 184 that was put into the streets to keep the tax rate relatively stable. You could shift some of that over into the public works building to help shore up the rest. Otherwise, we do have the 435 fund, which is just a general capital equipment fund. And that's been used in the past for like the floors for City Hall, the painting that was used. the epoxying of the floors for City Hall that was used. The payloader was purchased out of there. It's been used in the past for a handful of things. The HVAC units were going to come out of there, but that's budgeted into the general fund for next year, so we won't need to draw on that fund to do it. Right now, there's about $400,000 in that fund. And in the future, the only the only planned purchase that I saw in the CIP was to replace the F550. Is the only purchase that's looking to come out of there through 2026.
In 2025.
In 2025, the CIP goes out to 2026 for expenditures. So that's the only other one that's planned to come out of there. So when you look at a potential 300, we'll go high end because why not go with worst case scenarios? When you're looking at 300,000, I think you could shift monies from street over into here. However, and that we can work on shifting monies here to see what that'll do to the levy and then ultimately the tax rate and where council wants to go on that. And then you could shore up the remainder by dipping into that 435 fund of that 400,000, transferring into the Public Works Building Fund to come up with the remainder, depending on how bids come in, of course. If it comes at the low end at the 466 or the 766, sorry, 466, I wish. At the 766, and we're doing a whole lot better. We might not need to dip into that fund, but it's there. It doesn't have a ton of expenditures planned to come out of it, which is good because then we can pivot that money as needed. When you have 40% increase in building construction costs that were unexpected a couple of years ago when this process got underway. So
Is there any roadblocks with shifting money within funds once this is all set? So if we got into February, if we left it exactly as is, and decide, you know what, we want to take 100,000 from streets for the public works, that's just a simple
yes,
for us to do. I mean, this is obviously for transparency where taxpayers' dollars are going, but
Right.
we have that ability to transfer that
yes, we do.
internally.
Yes, internally we can transfer that because it's all just going to CIP, but we break it out for transparency's sake.
Yeah.
And that would be something you just put a resolution to make sure that you have the authority on it by council. It's just not simple motion. Have a resolution that spells out where it was originally, where it's going to go and the purposes for it. So that if it's ever brought up in question, you've got the document right there.
As far as where the buckets, and again, other than transparency, if we're not adding more, I mean, that number's the number, right?
Yeah, if we're not adding more, the number's the number.
So what happens, we talked about the 40,000 from the EDA or 42,006. What happens if we decided, what if that comes out and there's $0 there? What does that do?
Sure, let me switch over to this one where we can, I'll put that one back because I was toying around with the numbers a little bit to see different scenarios. So if we come up here and we back out that EDA amount, the rest stays the same, then you're looking at more just shy of a 16% levy increase. I think the good thing to stress with this is not something that's a permanent increase. We're looking to, if we're going to do this and you're going to, keep it this way, this is a one-time use type of money. This isn't a tails into the future. This will permanently be elevated at 284 type of money.
Right.
So in 2024, this would all come back down to where it needed to be, not necessarily where it's at today.
So preliminary that just came out and everybody's freaking out about because people's home values now match market from 2020.
Yep.
Which is, that's how it works.
Yep.
Was at 30%.
So yes, based
So technically the increase, you're going to still, people will still see an increase because the percentage increase that their homes actually went up.
right.
Even though our tax rate most likely is going to be lower than last year.
Yeah, so that's
The value of people's homes increased higher than our percentage decrease.
so you have the interplay of all that, yes. So right now, with the preliminary levy that was set at the 1.75, the levy increase was just shy of 31%, and that's what came out on people's tax statements, and everybody saw that. If you go with the situation we just have, you back out the 42. I went from that 19 down to 16%, and that's a one-time use type of money. So we'd expect in 2024, this would drop significantly because we're not going to have putting all that money. The public works building will be built. So, you know, this 100 grand, the streets gets put back down to 100, and then maybe you put 50 in parks to put that to 100, or you shift this towards a different capital, just to do what you guys need to do to make sure the CIP is funded as it's needed. And we'll get to that next year when we get the long-term planning all completed.
I feel much better at the 15.91
Correct.
Right.
than at 19. I was concerned with a 19% increase.
And in
our
the-
levy.
In the past, I just thought of this. For when we have the public hearing, in our December meeting, if we could use a median home value of like 300,000 and like what, you know, like what it actually looks like to a
Percentage,
normal
yes.
resident, so you can say like, this is what your preliminary is gonna say, and now here's,
Gives them an idea.
gives them an idea of what, because I was gonna bring mine, because I looked at my preliminary from last year, and my home value only went up 6,000. This year, my home value went up 80,000, because it's based on the market that your property tax lags market value.
Mhm.
So the same happens when home values crash. It takes values on your taxes 2 years. So I'm just saying that just so people understand, because it's very confusing.
Give you a couple scenarios.
Yeah, a couple scenarios.
350, 400.
Yeah, if we could, I think that will just help, and it will say that, you know, there was some errors done on the preliminary, not due to anybody's fault, but based on, we had an interim, there was questions on that bond payment, if it was done or not done, and that's why the preliminary was set higher than we probably would have if we didn't have all these weird.
We were in transition period.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm feeling a lot better at the 15.91 except versus a 19% increase. I think that's still a little high, but like I said, there's some one-time things, and we're adding staff. You know,
Yeah.
there's just things that are changing. Still a little high, I think, but
Yeah, for 2024, we'd be backing out that capital
Yeah.
portion.
I'm certainly good with it.
Because we're gonna have at least 2 years of higher
Yeah.
values of homes.
And I think taking out the EDA money because we didn't do it correctly, and then that does give us time for you to get your arms wrapped around the EDA, get them going again, and really get some good goals and some
Yep,
plans
agreed.
on what to do with the money.
Yep.
I'd rather know that before we get it versus get it and
Not
see
know
what
what it-
and see
yeah.
what happens. So
Right,
I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable with this.
Yeah.
I think it's good. The tax rate looks good.
Yeah, then the tax rate would go,
And-
touch on that. It was 53.21. Last year was 48.43.
I think we have good talking points to residents,
Mhm.
you know, that we're representing. If they ask about this, I think we have some good talking points to it.
I glanced real quick at 21, and the tax rate in 21 was just a shade over 49.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And so with
Yeah.
the scenario that we just penned out here, we're looking at just under 46% tax rate. So it dropped from 48.4 down to just shy of 46.
Nice job, Nick.
Thanks for the guidance.
I think that's good.
Trying to pull this all together. We can work the numbers right in front of us here on a spreadsheet, so it's not necessarily like, oh, I'll go get new numbers. I'll go get
Are we feeling comfortable enough with this? Do we feel we want to have another meeting prior to the December one to finalize, you know, to look at it, or are we feeling comfortable with this at the first meeting in December will be good to approve?
I feel good about where we've come. And I have talking points if people had questions.
Thanks, Brad. And I do too. I think if it came down to, it'd be such minor little adjustments of another $40,000 something. I mean, I'm comfortable with it. I don't think I need another meeting prior to finalizing it. Looks good.
Now, does this include anything for the potential of the splash pad beginning next year?
No, it does not.
It does not.
We'll see how the results of our grant application will
Okay.
drive that.
I just want to kind of make sure we've got.
All right. Anything else on that? Anyone else?
Oh, thank you. Thank you for all the work. And if we can just have a couple of quick examples.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna bring in my preliminary numbers and openly share them because I think it's important. So people see, that's just what I will be doing, if I remember.
And he can pull it in about the county too.
Yep, but I'll just bring it so I have my numbers, so I can speak to them.
Do the same. All right. With that, then we will adjourn. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Gotta actually ask for that.